Welcome to Transform Her, the show where we ignite audacity and break barriers, providing African female leaders with practical insights and tangible resources for their journey to the C-suite or in entrepreneurship. My name is Ifoma Williams, and I'm your transformative guide. On the last episode of Transform Her, we began the very important topic of holistic health for female leaders. We had in the house Dr. Monisola Adanijo, a renowned clinical cardiologist, and we indeed confirmed that one episode was too short to completely explore the topic of holistic health, mind and body, or shall I say mental and physical. After the short break, we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Monisola Adanijo. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the very important topic of holistic health, exploring the interconnectedness between physical and mental well-being. And we have in the studio to continue this conversation, Dr. Monisola Adanijo.
So good to be back, Ifoma.
Thank you so much, doctor. I think, ladies, what do you think? We should have a doctor in the house. And who better than a female renowned clinical cardiologist? For those of you who are watching this as the first episode, you will still glean insight. And just to let you know that Dr. Adanijo is the co-founder of Naveen Healthcare and Naveen Technologies. So let's jump right into it, Dr. Adanijo. Right. In the first episode, we were speaking about the actual causes. We're speaking about the ailments. We're speaking about the underlying factors. We really thoroughly spoke about inflammation. But the one we didn't speak about, which a lot of people are experiencing these days, is burnout. What is burnout?
Okay. So burnout is actually it's a situation where you find that things that you used to enjoy, suddenly you have no interest, or you just get tired. Take, for example, you are maybe a CEO of a company. You now realize that going to work no longer brings you joy. You're no longer excited by all the things that used to excite you at work. You dread going to the office. Sunday nights are just a big battle, you know. You look for every reason to be out of the office, and that wasn't what used to be before.
Wow.
Then you realize, oh my God, there's something happening. Like I said before in the first episode, I experienced it, okay? When I was still working, you know, with the civil service, every Sunday morning, I wake up with dread. Sunday nights, I'm so afraid. I start having palpitations. Wow. Mondays, I get to work. I find it hard to leave my car. I'm in the car park, I'm crying. I don't want to go to work.
Oh, wow.
At my big age. I want to be here. You understand? So I now realize that, gosh, you're burnt out. Okay, and that happens when you keep on working. There are no breaks. You keep on working, grinding. After a while, your body tells you, I think we're tired.
I think we are tired.
We are tired.
So let's look at that interconnectedness. So first of all, it's a mind thing. So the mind is going. And then the physical body is saying,
yeah, we're tired.
And sometimes, you know, to us humans, there's such a disconnect. So I have deadlines. Oh my God, I'm trading across nations and borders. Oh my God,
and time zones
are different. So maybe I should sleep in the daytime, and then at night I'm awake because I'm dealing with China. Let's just touch on that for a little bit. So the recommended or the natural sleep time is nighttime, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Does it affect you when you disrupt the natural cycle?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Like I said, sleep was created by God for a reason.
Right.
It's not a useless phenomenon. You need sleep to repair and rejuvenate.
Right.
Now, even if you want to stay awake at night, it shouldn't be every single night or most nights of the week. It should be the exception, not the norm.
Right.
Now, for many of us, we don't, we just assume that our bodies will follow us wherever we go. We just go and we assume our bodies will be there for us. And we've forgotten that the mind and the body are actually connected. They're not separate. Okay? When things are going on in the mind, it affects the body and vice versa. Now, I have a lot of patients that are referred to me for chest pain and palpitations. And in 10 referrals, usually women, in 10 referrals of women with chest pain and palpitations, after taking the history and going through the gamut, there's a percentage, maybe 3 to 4 of them, that actually have no heart disease. What they have is some form of anxiety, some form of psychological issues from things going on in their lives, okay? Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's man problem, sometimes it's children, and they find it strange because they feel the pain. They're not imagining the pain, they feel the pain. They feel the heart racing, you understand? But, they find it strange that why is it not a physical problem? And these people end up going from doctor to doctor to doctor, looking for a cure. But there is no physical cure. That kind of person needs to see a psychologist to unpack all the issues.
Wow, there is just too much to glean from this conversation with Dr. Adanijo. I'd heard before now that people's hearts physically break. Who better to tell us than a clinical cardiologist herself? So we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. Just before we went on break, I was actually saying that I'd heard that people can actually have their hearts physically broken and it is a condition. And Dr. Adanijo was just saying to me that yes, heartbreak can actually or is actually a rare condition. Doctor, please, you called one name.
Okay, let me explain. I said before we went on break that the mind and the body are related. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you go under or you go through a period of extreme emotional stress, okay, it could be sadness, of course, when you maybe lose a spouse or when somebody breaks up with you, okay?
Yes.
Because of that intense emotional state, you can actually develop heart failure.
Oh,
The so-called broken heart syndrome or Takotsubo cardiomyopathy.
Takotsubo
cardiomyopathy.
That doesn't sound like English.
It's okay. Cardiomyopathy just means heart muscle disease.
Right.
Cardiomyopathy.
Right.
Heart muscle disease.
Okay.
Okay. Takotsubo is the Japanese name. Now, when that happens, the person was otherwise well.
Okay.
Now goes through this emotional period and then comes down with heart failure. The heart enlarges and stops working properly.
Wow. This is interesting.
So that's why it's important to guard your mental health.
So the interconnectedness. So it starts in the mental and then manifests in the physical. This truly is interesting. So let's go back to burnout, and you might want to touch on inflammation as well. I'd really like to know what is shocking. I had somebody send me an email, and that's part of what informed the need for us to, explore holistic health for female leaders, because we know most of us are in pressure cooker situations, managing work, family, all of these things. And this lady sent me an email to say that when she went to the hospital, they couldn't diagnose anything. And when I spoke to you, we came to the conclusion that she was burnt out. But, I don't think you just get burnt out in one day. So I'd like for us to do two things very importantly. First off, what are the warning signs? Let's explore that extensively. And then how do we manage?
Now, signs of burnout, like I said, you start getting tired at work. You don't look forward to going to work anymore. Things that used to excite you in the office stop exciting you. Monday mornings are dreaded. So all those are signs of burnout. Now, how do you treat burnout? That was the question. Simple. You need to take a break. We need to learn to take breaks. I like to use myself as an example. Like I told you, I suffered burnout. I actually had to leave the work. I left that job because it was affecting me. Many of us may not have the luxury, obviously, to resign from work. So you need to learn to manage your situations. First of all, you need to learn to delegate. Many of us don't delegate. We think we're the only ones that can do whatever it is we know how to do. So we get stressed. So you're the one that is typing emails you shouldn't be typing and things like that. So learn to delegate. Learn to avoid your stressors. So if there are things you know that stress you out, try to avoid them, okay? And sometimes you have to accept that, okay, you know what? My boss is this person. I need to learn how to deal with him or we deal with her sometimes. And, so that I can manage my own stress and my own mental health. And we also need to learn, weekends were made for a reason. But these days, there are no weekends anymore. We work on Saturday, we work on Sunday. Weekends were made, it's called a weekend. The week has ended. So you have to detach yourself for 2 days and do nothing. Connect with yourself, okay? So that on Monday, you will be revived and revitalized and you'll be able to go back to work.
Doctor, something just came to my mind, speaking of response. I've heard about incidents where somebody was about to shout in anger or excitement and they actually die. I mean, we heard about it during the African Cup of Nations.
Oh, yes.
So, the reason why I'm using that very, poignant example is because, so were there signs? Because I find it hard to process the fact that someone just died. So, and the thing is, as ladies, let me bring it home now. This build-up, I want us to dwell on that. Are there signs when you hear somebody just slumped? What are these warning signs? What are they?
To be honest,
yes,
people that slump or collapse suddenly usually is due to cardiovascular disease.
Okay.
They either have a heart attack or they have a massive stroke bleeding into their brains.
Okay.
Many times, there may not be any signs. There may not be any symptoms. They're perfectly fine. Like all these men that died during the AFCON, many of them were well. Now, what are the risk factors for this? When you have hypertension that is not treated, okay? You have heart disease you don't know. And then you have all these problems. You now go and watch AFCON. You now scream. When you scream or when you shout or when you exclaim, your adrenaline levels shoot up. And adrenaline raises the blood pressure. So imagine if somebody's blood pressure was 160/100 and he was coasting along. And then Nigeria fails to score. We missed a penalty. And he yells, oh my God. Adrenaline shoots up. His BP shoots up to 240, 120. He strokes and dies. That's it. So that's why I can never talk less or talk, enough about checking yourself. And we women, we take care of everybody else but ourselves. We remind our husbands to go to hospital. I have quite a few patients that the husband is the one that had heart disease. The wife was fine. The wife brings the husband to hospital. And then one day, Baba comes alone. And you ask, where is mommy? Oh, mommy has died. The Baba that has heart failure is still going. But mommy that was the caregiver has gone. Because of stress. And because we don't take care of ourselves well enough. We put everybody in front of ourselves. And that needs to change. Because you can't lead effectively if you can't lead yourself. And to lead yourself, you need to be able to take care of yourself.
It reminds me of something, and this is a good place to summarize what we're talking about women, about self-care. When you get on a flight and the cabin crew are announcing before takeoff precautionary measures in the case of a change of events in the cabin, they usually say, should there be loss of cabin pressure, a mask like this will drop from the roof above your head. Pull sharply and place the mask over your nose and mouth. Inhale and breathe normally. Please fit your mask before helping others. If you do not fit your mask, even if you have a child, a baby on your laps, you will pass out in your bid to wear the mask for the child before you fit your own mask. Women, it is important that we all really pay attention to our bodies. These signs that our bodies are showing up, particularly as we are getting older. And it brings me to my next point, Dr. Adanijo. How often should we get checked out?
At least once a year. Now, people talk about, there's so much noise about pap smears and mammograms in women. And I always tell people, heart disease is still the #1 killer of women.
Wow.
Yes. All over the world.
Heart disease?
Yes.
Expatiate on that. What do you mean heart disease?
Heart disease just means disease of the heart and the blood vessels. Okay. So strokes, heart problems, okay, are the leading causes of death in women, not cervical or breast cancer. So there's so much noise about this, and people are like, oh, just pap smear. And no, get your pap smear and mammogram done, fine, but you need to check for your cardiovascular risk factors, which are your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your cholesterol. You need to check your kidney function and make sure all these are normal. Your weight is also important, okay? Once you check all these, at least once a year, then you should be fine. And they'll be able to pick up whatever it is that, wants to happen on time.
Okay.
Because early diagnosis saves lives.
Wow. Let's still talk about this heart disease being the #1. So I just really would like for us to really unpack this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you develop, okay, yes, you spoke about developing it through bad habits, but some of them are, of course, hereditary. So at what stage or age do you begin to check?
Okay, that's a really good question. I always tell people things have changed from when we were much younger. Once upon a time, heart disease was an illness of older people in their 40s and 50s. Now we're seeing 20-something-year-olds with severe hypertension.
God.
My youngest hypertension patient came to me at 16. I say this all the time.
What's that? Hereditary, or what happened?
Yes, there's a family history of hypertension,
gosh.
and then, obesity and different things. Now, this person is now 19 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So you can never be too young to check your blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And there are BP checks everywhere, any pharmacy. You don't have to go to a proper hospital if you're afraid of doctors, like some people are. Even in the markets, there are people going around our markets now with blood pressure machines. I mean, this is 2024. You have no excuse not to know what your blood pressure is, okay? And then when you have checked yourself, because I need to talk about it as well, many people go and check themselves and they say it's not their portion. Maybe they tell you have high blood pressure or you have high blood sugar. They say it's not my portion. And they don't do anything about it.
Whose portion is it?
And I tell people, whose portion is it?
Exactly.
So some of my patients are pastors. Some of my patients are men of God. It doesn't mean God hates them. It just means that they need to take care of themselves. So please, once you've been given a diagnosis, okay, follow the treatment plan of that diagnosis to prevent all these problems. 80% of heart disease deaths can be prevented by early treatment and lifestyle changes. 80%. So you can imagine how important this is.
Wow. So what I want us to do on this episode is an action plan and a charge to you ladies. So Dr. Adanijo will graciously take us through actionable steps moving forward.
So as female leaders, we need to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. Body and soul. Not just our external body, our internal bodies. We need to take rest. We need to prioritize sleep. We need to eat properly, eat proper food, not junk. We need to exercise. We need to learn to delegate and prioritize. We need to learn to go for our annual medicals. Many of us have health insurance. They'll send you an email for annual medical. You won't go because you're busy. It's important. It's better you get an all clear than for you to wait for something to happen.
This is so insightful. But speaking about medical checks, I find that nowadays they're more comprehensive. I'll give you a personal example. So I know of women, right, and I've had that issue before, who have had hairline issues and thought, oh, it's because of the braids and all of that. And it turned out to be an autoimmune condition that had developed, right, because thyroid function was poor and all of that. So is it that you submit yourself? And I'm asking this, I know what to do, but I'm asking on behalf of women who do not know. How do you go about this annual medical, right?
Okay.
Let's ask, do you go to because I see packages for people who don't have medical insurance. So you get up and you say, you know what, I want to go and have myself checked out. How do you go about it? Do you go to a hospital and say, I want a comprehensive checkup?
Okay, so if you don't know your medical history, you have no idea of what is wrong with you or anything about your health, you need to see a doctor who will take a history, your personal history, your family history, your lifestyle history. Now that would inform the tests that you need to do. Because there are a gazillion tests to do to check your health. And you cannot do every single test. It's impossible. So history and clinical examination would point the doctor in the right direction. Okay, because you have a family history of thyroid disease, because your hair is thinning, because you have pains in your, maybe pain in your back or pain in your chest, do these tests to check. Okay. Or because you're a certain age, these are the tests you need to do. Or because maybe your mom had heart disease, these are the tests you need to do. You can't. People do walk into places and just say, oh, I want to check myself. But many times it's not tailored to you. It's just a random package. It's like buying shoes that are not your size.
That's fantastic. On a final note, doctor, I can't thank you enough. What advice would you give to your younger self about medical life generally, especially coming from the standpoint of mental and physical health being correlated?
Just one sentence. Don't take life too seriously.
Because nobody's coming out alive.
Nobody's living their hell alive. We say it and we joke, but it's the truth. There's so many things that were issues for me when I was in my 20s that are no big deal now. So many things you worry about that you end up, why was I worried about that? So we need to relax. We need to not take life too seriously.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It was such an awesome pleasure having you. And I feel so much better. I now know so much. Kaboski.
We'll talk about that after the show.
Ladies, it's been another insightful episode of Transform Her. What I gleaned from this is, you might have heard it before, at least once a year annual check. Annual checks are not one size fits all, and you should look to getting one that suits your needs. Please stay tuned for our next segment, which is our coaching segment on Transform Her. Welcome to today's coaching episode on Transform Her. In our last episode, if you recall, we're still on the topic of personal branding, and we discussed the why of personal branding. Today, I want to take you through the how you can build a strong personal brand. And so I've called it Personal Branding Action Points. So remember, there are 5 attributes of a strong personal brand. There's authenticity, clear communication, or clearly defined, communicated, consistency, and the ability to evolve. So I came back to this because I wanted to remind us what these attributes are, because the how we develop is understanding each of these 5 attributes. When we speak about authenticity, we speak about you identifying your uniqueness, and then the values that you hold dear. Now, the importance of values is that you show that these are truly your values by acting or living out these values. If you call something a value and your actions show otherwise, you are only paying lip service to that word, paying lip service to that word. So let's take the value of integrity, for instance. If you say integrity is one of your values and you are late to work every day, integrity is beyond the absence of fraud. Integrity is being true to your word. And so if you miss deadlines or you are late to work every day, you cannot claim that integrity is one of your values. So speaking to your authentic self, it means that you understand your unique abilities, you live out your values, and then you combine both to bring forward a value proposition as a personal brand. The next thing in building a strong personal brand is clearly defining your brand. What is your brand narrative? Simply put, what story are you telling? How are you selling this, your personal brand proposition? The next thing is for you to note that if you do not craft your brand narrative or the story, they will. I've said here that if you don't, they will. You must take control of your personal branding so that you manage the public perception and reputation that you eventually develop. Remember that in the last episode, we spoke about perception indeed being reality, if not 90% of reality. The important point to note, ladies, and a few good men, is that branding is occurring whether you are participating or not. People are defining what narrative they will about you. The market will brand you, and they may not do it favorably if you do not brand yourself properly. Wrong attention can be brought, and it can easily escalate to the court of public opinion, which might not be the perception that you want to put out there. If you don't brand yourself intentionally, they will. What's the next way that you can brand yourself? Look out for the next episode where we continue to discuss the action points on how to define and develop a strong personal brand. Until next time, it's goodbye.